The more I think about The Last Jedi, the more I understand why it made 800 million less than The Force Awakens. People walked out of The Force Awakens a little confused, but they went back and saw it in the theaters twice because they wanted to understand it. And it was 10 years or more since the last Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, which was said to be the best of the prequels. Really, the prequels could have been improved with some editing if you just took 30 minutes out of each film. People were desperate for Star Wars content, and The Force Awakens did pretty well, but after time went by, people realized that The Force Awakens wasn't actually very good. The main problem was the character evolution of Rey, an abandoned orphan who scavenges parts from crashed spaceships, but she can talk to a robot, is an expert with her quarterstaff, she can beat a soldier, and then to top it off, she can fly a spaceship she has never been in before. But not only can she fly it, but she flies it like she's been flying it her whole life. So where did she get these amazing piloting skills? The film moves so fast that you never stop to think about it, until you leave the theater. But people assumed, well, I guess the next film will explain everything. People hit the net and started wondering, how did Rey learn these Jedi mind tricks? How did she know how to handle a sword? I mean, I get the basics of a steel sword. You slash or you poke with the sharp end. And an untrained person with a sword might do pretty well against an unarmed person, but wouldn't do very well against an experienced swordsman. Kylo Ren was an experienced swordsman, and maybe he isn't up to Darth Vader's level, but he isn't chopped liver. He's able to extract information from Poe. He can stop a laser beam, which is a heck of a trick, because allegedly the speed of light is constant, at least in a vacuum. But in the Star Wars universe, faster than light travel is allowed, so let's not sweat the details. The point is, Kylo is fairly powerful, and Rey is an untrained scavenger. Basically, she takes parts off of ships, so I get that she knows her way around a ship. Maybe she's also a mechanic. It seems like the skills are fairly related. But that doesn't make her a pilot, much less an expert one. I can understand that on her planet she knows how to fight with her cane thing, but that doesn't mean she can fight someone like Kylo, who trained to be a Jedi for probably 10 years. Didn't Kylo train under Luke freaking Skywalker, the Super Jedi? Before, of course, Jake Skywalker decided to murder his student in his sleep, because that is so in keeping with the character developed over the past 40-odd years, except that it absolutely isn't. It's as if Rian and JJ were completely unfamiliar with the source material. They managed to make films worse than the prequels, except with the amazing special effects. You have to give them that. The special effects have come a long way in 20 years. So much lens flare. I thought it looked pretty cool. But when The Last Jedi, well, I thought it looked pretty cool. So when The Last Jedi rolled around, people assumed that it would resolve the questions raised in The Force Awakens. Except it didn't. It made her even more of a Mary Sue. She was able to move tons of rocks after a brief training session with Luke. Speaking of which, she is so powerful that even before her training session, she's able to knock Luke down. How exactly does that happen before any training? The concept of the master training the student in the martial arts, in this case kendo or kenjutsu, is an old one. In movies, at the end of training, the student bests the master before he graduates. In reality, that almost never happens. Training takes a lifetime. The student gets the basics, then gets sent out into the world on Jedi missions and learns the rest in the real world. Of course, there is no training arc for Rey. She beat the master before any training. So why even have Luke in the role as instructor? Why is he even in the movie? The viewer slowly comes to the realization that there is no resolution in The Last Jedi. This is it. This flaming pile of garbage is the movie. The character of Rey is complete in and of itself. But why is that? After seeing Holdo, purple-haired, ball-gown-wearing dinosaur lady, the solution presents itself. Oh, and look at Holdo's flight crew. Plenty of women, even some chubby ones. You come to the conclusion that the film is an SJW movie. Women in leadership positions are fine in Star Wars, but in the original, Lucas didn't elevate the women by making the men look incompetent. In the original trilogy, the Resistance acted like what they were, competent, trained soldiers. Everyone did brave and amazing things. In The Force Awakens, they portray Finn as sort of an affable, clingy guy with a crush on Rey, who is too cool for school. Rey doesn't need Finn because she doesn't need no man. After all, she has BB-8. Maybe he has certain pleasure attachments. I'm sure there is a prawn parody of that out there. Even without seeing the earlier 6 films, these reboots were bad. But if you're familiar with the Lucasfilms, the reboots are an insult. Jedis start as children and train for decades. Luke was a bit of a freak, but remember, he actually wasn't very good. He had some piloting skills, but wasn't able to buy a ship and fly them off planet. Obi-Wan starts training Luke as on board the ship, and Luke slowly learns, but he never actually does anything with the Force in the entire first film. Obi-Wan does. Luke, Han, and Leia are using blasters. Of course, Leia, his sister, is also a Super Jedi, but more on that later. In Empire, Yoda trains Luke for an unknown period of time, but Luke is very humble about it, and he is filled with self-doubts. He makes plenty of mistakes. At the end of Empire, he loses to Vader and has to be rescued by his friends. Compare that to Rey. She has none of that character building. On day 1, she is complete. Her story is over before it started. Imagine if when Luke met Yoda, that Luke knocked him down. Obviously, it wouldn't make any sense. What kind of Jedi Master can get dominated by a student? It's ridiculous. But some of the audience accepted it in The Last Jedi because films have changed in 40 years. You have films now where 120-pound models routinely beat up 240-pound soldiers because girls kick ass. In the 70s and 80s, the audience would laugh at something so silly. But in the 90s, it all started to change. Maybe it started with La Femme Nikita. Movies just got more and more ridiculous. I thought it peaked in The Avengers with Black Widow, but oh no, not even close. And to be fair, people liked Black Widow. Those D-cups go a long way. 130-pound Black Widow went into a room full of guys and magically jujitsu'd her way through them, but she has the power of a huge, tight butt and an amazing rack. Rey has no boobs or butt to help her, and she is made into almost a god. If she is this powerful without training, what happens after she gets training? Will she be the next Sith Emperor? And here's where I think I discovered the plot of The Last Jedi. To really destroy Lucas's legacy and Luke Skywalker, have Rey somehow be a Skywalker, have her be related somehow, have her kill Kylo Ren, have her kill the Emperor, and become the Emperor. Basically Hillary Clinton, but in space. How's that? How's that from a completely accurate prediction of what the next Star Wars will be, Chapter 9? So I punched in Star Wars memes in DuckDuckGo, and it comes up with memes, and most of them are from the prequels or the originals. The one from the new ones, the rest are from anything but the new ones. People did not get invested in the new films. Obviously, the original trilogy had a huge, huge cultural impact. But the thing is, if you're too young to remember, in 99, I think the first one came out. I mean, the first prequel came out. And Natalie Portman she did a great job in that. She was a huge part of the draw. But it was still a Lucas film. It wasn't loved later on, but it was still a powerful film. And it felt like a Star Wars film. And so you can tell by the lack of memes. If something's the films, like the later films, were just kind of so blah that nobody bothered to make memes of them. They just yeah. Oh, anyway, another thing with the original films, if you remember, there's that original joke about Anakin killing kids, killing the younglings. That's an incredibly dark, even for a Disney film, that's pretty dark. And then before that, he goes to the Sand People's village. They kidnapped his mom, so fair enough. And he goes and he kills them all, and he kills the children too, which is, whatever. That's part of his character development. But that's part of the movie was a much more mature approach to Star Wars. But I guess it's, it wasn't the 70s and 80s anymore. It was the 90s and 2000s, so they could take a darker approach. But yeah, even the prequels. When you make the prequels, and they are so much better than what Disney can do. You think Disney had 15 years to think about it and plot it out and plan it, and they screwed up so freaking badly. Someone says they don't like Star Wars. Yeah, they don't like modern Star Wars. Anyway, these are my predictions. I'm sure they will be 100% accurate. Rey will be the Emperor. She'll turn to the dark side, and she'll be the new bad guy. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next episode.